Hi, my name is Casey and I'm the owner of The Big Clean Co. Welcome to episode number 3 of this podcast. The Big Clean Co. is a cleaning business based in Melbourne. We also sell a cleaning product under the brand name For All Australia, and we sell that worldwide. What am I doing here? I just wanted to share some of my tips, some things I've learned, some things that have made The Big Clean Co. the success that it is today. And I also want to share some of my failures so hopefully you can avoid making some of the same mistakes. I'm basing what I'm doing today on questions that I got from you guys on Instagram and Facebook. And this is around the topic of growth, which is a great topic to talk about. I have a lot of experience with growth, not only in the Big Clean Co, but in the business that I did before this, which was in the hospitality industry. So my partner and I had a business that we did together. My partner's name is Chris. I'm probably going to mention Chris a few times in this, so you know who I'm talking about. He's my partner. I'm answering now some direct questions I got from you guys, and I'll read those out first and then I'll talk a bit about them. So the first one was how I knew it was time to grow. The next question was, I grew from 0 to 20 staff in the first year of business, struggling to clock off ever. Do you have tips? And the next one is, what made you decide to get started to begin with? So where do I start with this without going back too far in my life? I'm just going to start, I guess, in the middle, which is when I decided to open the Big Clean Co. So Chris and I had actually separated, and he went bankrupt. So he lost everything. We separated, and I decided to start a cleaning business because at that time I had a small income from an Airbnb that I was doing, but I had to go on the single parenting payment, and I suddenly, the saying, a man is not a financial plan, suddenly that hit me. I was 32, yes, possibly a bit late to figure that out, but that's when I figured it out. A man is not a financial plan, and the future that I thought I had, because I had a really comfortable life financially with him in my 20s, but as I said, he lost everything, and I realized I needed to set something up for myself, and that's where the Big Clean Co came into it. And the beautiful thing about a cleaning business is you don't need anything to start it. You do not even need a cleaning kit, because if you just chuck an ad up on Facebook advertising yourself as a cleaner and you say that your clients have to supply the cleaning products and equipment, you don't even need to buy a vacuum. So I love that about a cleaning business. It is a business that literally anybody can start, and that's what I did. But let's talk about how I got there to be this 32-year-old single mother who had absolutely nothing after having what I said was a really comfortable financial life. We lived in a house in St Kilda East in Melbourne, which is a great little suburb. That house was owned by him. He also had investment properties. We had nice cars, all that stuff that absolutely means nothing ultimately, and I figured that out. But what we were doing was we had a hospitality business. And this leads into the next thing that I wanted to answer, which is from the person who said they grew from 0 to 20 staff in the first year. I didn't do that with the Big Clean Co. I didn't hit 20 staff until year 4. And that was a conscious effort that I made not to grow at that rate, because of the fact that I'd done it in the past. The business that we had in hospitality, Chris and I, it turned over $1 million in its first year. It turned over $2 million in its second year. And in its third year, it was gone. Our family was broken. Chris and I personally were each broken. And it kind of destroyed us ultimately. And we were able, fortunately for both of us, to rebuild it. And we actually got back together 3 years later. It was not a quick process. It was 3 years later. The Big Clean Co was already up and running by the time we got back together. But so yeah, like I said, I get that whole thing when you say that you're struggling to clock off, because that's exactly what happened to us. We had this hospitality business. It was actually open 18 hours a day year round. In the second year, we did take Christmas Day off or to close the business, but it was open constantly, and it's very hard to escape a business that's open constantly unless you do have people in place who can run it for you completely when you're not there. But we were called upon all the time. We didn't have that foundation. We didn't have like a structure of management. It was just it was chaos. It was chaotic. And that's why I chose not to grow the Big Clean Co like that. And even after I I guess everything sort of blew up on the internet and TikTok went crazy and then Instagram started growing and now Facebook does it. We get so many inquiries, and especially for outer suburbs of Melbourne, that I just don't even attempt to service. I don't have a lot of interest right now in trying to grow outside of our immediate area because I like my life, ultimately. It's because I like my life. I like my free time. I like my kids. I like the hobbies that I do. I have a couple of horses. I try to share stuff in the Instagram stories about that because, if anything, I would like to inspire people who have a business to not let that business consume you. That's ultimately what it can get like, especially when you're growing something that has come from within you, which the Big Clean Co, it was nothing. I came up with the business name. I have done all the advertising myself. You create something out of nothing. You give people jobs that previously weren't there. It is an amazing thing to be involved in, but it shouldn't be your whole life. You should have other stuff going on. You should be able to breathe out on the weekends and not worry about what's going on in your business. And not being able to switch off, it's unhealthy. So unhealthy. You don't sleep properly. You don't eat properly. I get that because I was there. And in fact, to go a little bit deeper into it all, I actually had a drinking problem when Chris and I had the hospitality business, and he had a very escalating drug problem. And that's where it got to the point of collapse. I ended up quitting alcohol. I haven't drunk now for years. He is clean from drugs, and that's why our family was able to get back together. We were able to turn our lives around. And I get it, like not everybody has that kind of a rock bottom where they have drug issues. I mean, most people that I know in business drink a lot. I don't come across many other business owners who don't laugh off the solution, like whenever there's a stressful day, just have a wine at night. To me, that was a really damaging mentality, and I tried that, and it was relentless until I drank, and then I drank to try to switch off from it, but then the next day it's even worse because you feel like crap. It just snowballs, and I think my sobriety could be like a whole different podcast topic, but when somebody tells me about that kind of growth, I go, ooh, that sounds consuming. And to me, that doesn't sound like fun. To me, 20 staff means over $500,000 a year in sales, because 20 staff, I guess you could have 20 staff who are only doing like super casual hours, maybe 12 hours a week, and then the sales aren't so high. But for me, 20 staff means over $500,000 a year in sales. And that is a lot of clients, and that is a lot of staff, and that is a lot of daily problems. So my first tip for that is get an admin team in place. You need at least one full-time admin person who has experience in a service-based industry. And when I got to that 20 staff mark, that's what I did. I looked for a person who could bring more into the business than I had. That's what Chris and I didn't do in our hospitality business. So I learned from that mistake, and I changed that with the Big Clean Co. And I knew that you don't grow until you're ready to. And to be ready to, you have to have that foundation in place with systems and structures, because as you probably know, if you've grown fast, there's a lot of holes, there's a lot of cracks, there's a lot of places that things go wrong, and every single day is just putting out fires. And you're just dealing with the problems every day, and you don't have space in your life to get it to just steady out, to stabilize. And that's that's the growing, gone thing, because if you can't stabilize, it's going to collapse. You're going to burn yourself out. You're going to have a lot of disgruntled clients, maybe a lot of disgruntled staff. Everyone's going to be annoyed, including you. And what kind of life is that? So take the hit with the financial hit with setting up a office structure, of having the admin person, of having the space to come to work. I mean, I suppose you could do it remotely, but for us it works that we work in the office together a couple of days a week. And that's my recommendation with that. If you have grown really fast before you were ready, you need to take a breather and sort out your systems. The next thing I want to talk about is how I knew it was time to grow. So that ties into that. That's how I knew it was time. How you know it's time to grow is when you're ready to. But when I started the Big Clean Co, I did have a goal in mind of what I wanted to grow to. And it's funny, we've long past that now, but my goal at the time was to get this income figure that I would be comfortable with. And so I got that income figure. I figured out what I would need in sales to get that. And then I figured out if I have this many sales, how many clients do I need to get that many sales, which you can figure out because a lot of cleaning is recurring. So you can figure out how many clients you're going to need, and then you can figure out how many staff you're going to need to service those clients. So I figured out that I would need 2 teams of 5 working 5 days a week. So it's 10 staff. I needed 10 staff every day, Monday to Friday, and then I would have this income that I was comfortable with. I didn't take into account that I would then need to do the admin work full time myself, and as it turns out, I'm not the most organised person. Okay, guys, I am not the most organised person, and you need to be organised to run an office. That's the truth. And so then I discovered I actually needed an admin person, and then so to still get my income that I was comfortable with, I also needed to pay an admin person, so I needed to up the sales that we would need for me to be comfortable with. But once you kind of get your head around those numbers that you're going to need, you have goals that you can work towards. So if you don't have that many clients, you can go, well, we need to find this many clients. How are we going to find them? How are we going to find them? Where are we advertising? How are people finding us? But yeah, start with goals for sure. Start with goals to grow towards, and then when things are comfortable, you can keep growing. But I'm very wary of fast growth, and I think everybody should be. And I guess you don't know that until you've had the experience that Chris and I had with losing everything, including each other, our relationship, our family. We lost literally everything, and nothing teaches you like that. So I hope that today, hearing my story might help you with setting some goals around growth, and also ensuring that you set up the systems that you need to not just maintain the growth trajectory, but just keep the clients, keep the staff. All of that requires so much background work that you might not necessarily be able to do, you might not necessarily be qualified to do on your own. So then you can start setting some goals around who you need in your team, in your office, to help you achieve all of that. Like I've said in every podcast, if you do have anything that you want to ask me, you can message me on Instagram, you can message me on Facebook, and I'll chuck it into a podcast and discuss it a little bit, especially if it's a common question. But yeah, I hope I've helped you today. Hope you've enjoyed it. See you next time.